Good day, everyone, and welcome to Different Stages Radio. I'm your host, JJ, broadcasting in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And my guest today is a musical director, bassist for the band Transatlantic Radio, who are about to release their debut album, Midnight Transmission, on February the 20th on Frontiers Music. Please welcome my guest, Victor Brodén. How are you?
I am glorious this morning. Thank you so much for having me.
I can tell.
Very appreciative. And, I'm a Swede. Swedes and Canadians, we really are pretty much the same, I have to say. In all my years of living in the United States, and every time I go to Canada on tour, even though Canada is very diverse and all the cities are different, I just love Canada since day one. Also, I don't trust people who don't have hockey as a religion. So, that's another important thing.
It's those subtleties that help us get along, and the music, of course, too.
Yes.
Now,
I mean, not to get off on a tangent right away, but Canada's produced some of my favorite artists that should have been so much bigger. Incredible music country, Canada. You should be as known for it as us Swedes are.
Do you dare to rattle some artists off that you really like?
Oh man, let's start with Bryan Adams. Okay. There would be no Transatlantic Radio, and I don't know if I would have been a musician without Bryan Adams, and it goes on from there. I saw Loverboy live just a few years ago, and they were old and overweight, but they sang and played their asses off. And every song, I thought I only know a few songs by these guys, yet 90 minutes, all hits. I knew them all. And I have some, I do not hide my large and all-encompassing love for Nickelback. Incredible. If you grew up on Def Leppard and you like the heavy riff with a pop melody, there's nowhere else to go but Nickelback. And in the typical Canadian fashion, it's super well made, and they're not, busy with image or any of that shit. They just write great songs and play them in a t-shirt, and I love it. But many of the Canadian producer, I think David Tyson, his name, he produced Atlanta Miles back in the day. Then he produced in the 90s, during the dark ages of grunge in 1995, he produced the debut album for Amanda Marshall, all Canadian. I can go on and on. I love Canadian music. And Canadian also has great country artists. There's a Canadian country singer by the name of Paul Bryan, maybe, I don't know, but a huge fan fan of Canadian country. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
And then, so we can get into all of your background and so forth too. But I want to first get talking about the first couple tracks I heard that got me sucked in to go, I have to find out more and learn more about this band. City of Angels and Wide Awake. I'm like, these guys, what's going on here? You're sucking me right in with that classic melody, feeling like it's early summer has come. I'm back in high school. This is awesome. So how has the reception been to those songs so far? City of Angels and Wide Awake.
Better than we expected, I think. We obviously know that these songs are a very specific thing, right? And I think there's always going to be people, even in the AOR community, that think certain elements of AOR are cheesy and should be left on the trash heap of history. And I feel like without trying to be ironic in any way, we are leaning heavy into a little bit of that cheese on purpose because we love it. And so I expected the response to these songs to be like 60% just like, oh, we totally get this. We eat up all the cheese, and the other 40 will be like, really, guys? But it's like 95% complete love. And as I'm sure you've read in press releases, we started this project with no expectation. We weren't even going to release any music. We were just going to have fun. And so the record isn't out yet, but we've already gotten more positive responses from the AOR community than we could have ever dreamed of. And that's the truth.
Well, and I think you nailed it on the head by saying that there's that authenticness to it, not in so many words, but that's what drew me in, is that I'll hear some things in this genre, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, it's okay, but there was something special and unique. And it seemed as I did more digging, and we can get to your background and the rest of the guys in the band. And I'm like, I think that's what it was, that I didn't even realize how much musicality and how appreciative you were and to the genre. That yeah, it's not that you're breaking any new ground, but it's authentic. And that's what really pulled me in.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we're not breaking any new ground, that's for sure. The authentic part, I think, throughout the heavy production and the hundreds of background vocals, Mutt Lange style, and throughout all of the overproducedness and the drum machines and all that, there is a lot of authenticity, meaning I consider the works that we borrowed from to be like the Bible, if you're a religious person. And I wanted to authentically honor those people that made those records, that gave me the gift of falling in love with music. And it's interesting that when the pandemic happened and all of those of us in the band who play music for a living, for the first time, we got to experience grown-up adult life without playing music for money. And my brain instantly went by itself to a place where I hadn't been in many years, except casually, which was my love for AOR. So when you took the money out of the equation, the fact that I make a living in this industry, and I just got to do it as a hobby like a teenage kid, this is what came out of me and came out of us. And that's why it's authentic. It's a love letter to all those bands and the guys in those bands who took painstaking time and effort to make those records. And it's a love letter to my teenage self for being such a nerd. And that's what it is. That's what the authentic is. And I really appreciate you picking up on that. We did zero compromise to try to fit in or to try to get a record deal or any of that. We made these songs into what we think they should be, and that's it. I mean, it's very slick and polite, but the attitude behind it is very punk rock. Like, this is exactly what we wanted to make, and if it's not your cup of tea, politely fuck you. That kind of a thing.
That's totally fair. Now let's talk a little bit. I want to give some people some of your background, because after doing some digging, it's like you're a super accomplished musician. You've played with some incredible artists, from Dawkins to Loretta Lynn to Mark Slaughter to Leanne Rimes. Like, the list is endless. Now, how did you get, like, I'm getting a bit off topic, but when you started this band, it was you and Fred that you went to school with, your keyboard bandmate, correct?
Yeah, it's interesting. I moved to Los Angeles after many fruitful and enjoyable years in Nashville in my mid 40s, right? And that's not normally when you move to a new market to establish yourself. And as far as musicians I knew in Los Angeles, Fred was one of like the top three because I knew him since college. And I always knew that, one, he's a musical genius, and few people can make me laugh like Fred. I think he's genuinely funny. So, of course, you want to be around people like that when you move to a new city because it's hard. And I sent him this little song, Tail Between My Legs, because my demo was so bad because I barely knew how to operate Logic. Most of the time there's somebody hired at the session or at the concerts I'm doing to do all the computer stuff. And he gave me a little bit of grief about the quality of it, but mostly he was just like, this is fun. I want to play on it. And I didn't expect that energy from him or from RJ or the other guys. But Fred, being a believer of wanting to spend a lot of time realizing the first few songs, that's how we exist. He's the guy that's mixed this and all those reverbs and all that 80s. It's in the writing, but the things you're feeling, emotion, you have emotional responses or direct results of Fred's making lots of technically great decisions. So I'm so thankful for him. I really am.
Now, once again, that's Fred Kron, who people should also know that he's got an amazing career. He's been on tons of soundtracks. He also plays keys with the Jimmy Kimmel Band sometimes, or most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, Fred has done so much cool stuff. He's had a very different sort of path in the industry than a few of the other the rest of us. But yeah, Fred Kron has done a bunch of TV shows, a bunch of movies, a bunch of scoring. And also, when he plays live in LA, he plays at the Baked Potato with, Steve Ferroni from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And, Fred has been in LA for so long that most of this city knows about his talents. And he operates at that echelon and still has a childlike love for 80s keyboards. He does not come from hard rock or metal. He comes from like Whitney Houston. And that's a tremendous access for us because he looks at this music as pop music with guitars, which quite frankly, I'm a rock and roll guy and a metal guy, and I also look at it like that. So that's a fresh view that Fred has on this stuff for sure.
So that we can complement each other. But then you also have this hack on guitar. Who's this guy? Who's this hack you have?
Yeah, it's not like he's like, it's not like he's one of the biggest YouTubers in the world.
Yeah, exactly. RJ Ronquillo, sorry, just incredible, like incredible player.
Yeah. The coolest thing about RJ, except for the fact that he's a nice human who loves music, which comes through in his videos and all that. He never comes across as he's selling something, or he's just so genuine with the stuff. RJ is a musician's guitar player in the sense that he went to Miami with Fred for 4 years. I met them there. I was there for 10 weeks. Went to a world-class jazz school, can play bebop and jazz and Wes Montgomery, that stuff. But then he also loves like Warren D. Martini and Rat and like hair metal. And then he also, when he lived in LA, before I moved here, he played a lot of pop and R&B, like you have to do if you're a guitar player in LA. And RJ is just musical in all genres. I think the side of him playing through a Rockman and tapping and all that, I think that's not a side of him that he has put forth so much in his, well-known YouTube videos. And same thing as Fred. Not only was I happy that he approached this project and wanting to do it, but I keep being blown away by how much enthusiasm 6 years in, that we move at a snail's pace, obviously, how much enthusiasm he brings to the table. And then, of course, him being a YouTuber, a video editor, he's incredible. He's my brain trust when it comes to making band T-shirts or some of the videos and stuff. He has a good eye for that stuff. He's a stylish dude too. So, yeah, he's a hell of a human on all levels, that guy.
And then Chris on drums, Chris Reeve.
Yeah. I know
yeah.
I sound like an infomercial, but you're talking about my friends, but also my idols. So it's very hard for me not to go full brag mode on these guys.
And Chris, should. Yeah, they're big deals.
Yeah, Chris is not that, he's about 10 years younger than me. And for some reason, when I first started playing with him about 6-7 years ago, I looked at him like he was 20, even though he was like in his early 30s. And I thought of him as a kid, but he played with us bass players. Us bass players of a certain generation, we love it when drummers know how to bring energy and excitement, but most of all, when they know how to chill out and just groove. And Chris is one of those guys. He's got all those chops, and he came up on a lot of rock music that was really busy. But when you just want to sit and groove for 6 minutes and do nothing, like our song Fever Dream, for example, Chris has that magic where he can just play a simple beat and make everyone feel better, It's just, and a lot of our project, when we started, we programmed a lot of the drums and stuff, and Chris just came in with the biggest open mind and enthusiasm, and when you hear us live, you can really, really tell what Chris Reeve does to the music. It's something to be seen. I think the biggest luxury in life, whatever industry you're in or in a band, if you are around people you think are better than you and you can learn from, and I do a lot of dumb shit, but the guys that I picked for this band or who picked to join me, that's some of the smartest stuff I've ever done. So yeah, I love it that you're asking about them individually, because their stories and the fact that they come from a less AOR heavy background than me, who's a complete lifer and nerd with this stuff, like you, I assume, that helps the band. I love it that we have a drummer that grew up on more modern rock than we play, because then when we play live, even though it's all very derivative, there will be more of an original sort of element.
And feel.
Yeah.
Definitely the feel. Now let's talk a little bit about Mattias on vocals.
Man, that's the most fun thing to talk about, really.
Yeah.
I come from a small town on the Swedish south coast called Karlskrona. It's known for, fishing industry and a large shipyard and a big Navy base, Small town, not very fun, but very, very pretty. And I was home in Sweden when I started messing with these first demos. And I asked a childhood friend of mine who's an engineer and mixer, Magnus Sedenberg, and he knows metal, he knows AOR. He was the guy that introduced me to Danger's first album and the first album by Signal, the two of the records that informed this record. He's the guy that introduced me to them when I was a kid. So I asked him casually a few years ago, I'm like, who should I get to sing on these little AOR demos? It's like, you got to get Mattias. I'm like, the guy from the Kiss cover band? It's like, yeah, get Mattias. I'm like, isn't he a metal singer? Like metal? He's like, yeah, but it'll work. And thank God I took his word, because Mattias, in his daily life, is a very high-ranking Navy officer. He gives orders to hundreds of people. But in this band, we are we're very hands-on with how these songs should be sung. And I write a lot of the lyrics, and Mattias has no ego about that stuff. He just is there to execute and make the whole better. And when he goes out of his metal voice into a softer voice, everyone loves it, including him, because he hasn't sung like that much. But then it's so nice to have that metal power and aggression on tap for the few moments where we lean into it. Like the song Wide Awake, I didn't write it to be a single. The label picked it as a first single. I wrote it as a song we could use in a live show to show people what Mattias is made of. And then the label ironically picked that as a single. So that says something about Mattias,
But you're correct, though, where he just has that little bit of oomph that just adds a little bit of meat underneath, but doesn't take away from the song. Still keeps it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate you noticing that. Yeah, I always tell people we have, certainly, these Rockman guitars, they're, fierce, but they're still more polite than, heavy metal guitars. We have a pretty angry bass tone. I use a pretty aggressive sort of Nickelback leaning bass tone, and Mattias sings hard. But the other things, the drums, the guitar, and the keyboards and a lot of the background vocals are so pop that I feel like if our band is different for any reason, it's the fact that we have a few elements that sounds a little bit rougher meeting with a lot of the pop stuff,
But I'm sure it must help big time with everybody, like as far as the players are concerned, Mattias aside, because he's great. But as far as the instrumentalists in the band, the fact that you've been able to work with so many different people and adapt to different situations must so help in this situation that people know when to pull back and add a bit more and let it breathe, leave space.
Yeah, you're spot on the money there, man. I think being a freelance musician, or like guys in bands call us, like horse, the fact that anyone waves some money, we'll come play, and we don't care if it's thrash metal or polka. And I play bass guitar for a living, and I love playing bass guitar. And I most days do not care if it's thrash metal or polka. And some guys have a hard time understanding that, but genre, even though the record we made is very specific and in a specific genre is a construct. And if you're just in love with music, you'll have a lot more fun. And like you said, the fact that all these guys have done anything from little restaurant gigs with a jazz trio to, arenas and stadiums with rock acts, it means that you can have guys that play Wide Awake with the same with a completely different song from Fever Dream. Fever Dream and Wide Awake are like the goalposts of our record, the softest and the hardest song. And the fact that they know what to do in both those scenarios, you know, it's yeah, I can't shut up about it, as you can tell. The guys in this band are just, it's really incredible, because I wrote most of the songs for this first project, which I hope will change. But for me to just randomly have access to these guys, sort of outside of their normal thing where they charge per hour, where everyone's like, hey, yeah, let's have this project together. I still pinch myself about it 6 years in. I do.
Well, it seems it's kind of developed organically, that it was nothing ever forced and nothing ever really that was meant per se to be. We can actually thank COVID for something good that came out of it, which was Transatlantic Radio. And
yeah,
the fact is that I don't want to put words in your mouth, so please correct me on this, but I feel that each of you have enough work outside of Transatlantic Radio to keep you busy, but you enjoy this outlet, and it's a great way to express yourself and be creative, and also probably hang out together. That, you know,
yeah,
you do this, you just love to do it.
Yeah, the band has been together twice, with the original members, because RJ was unfortunately had COVID when we did our shows in Sweden last summer of 2024. So the band has only been together twice ever in history, and that will be in Las Vegas for the video shoot for Fever Dream in March 24, I think, and then about 3 months ago here in LA to shoot the 2 videos that you just saw from Frontiers. So we are just looking for an excuse to not hang out on Zoom, because we're real used to this.
It's too easy. But okay, let's get talking though. You brought it up a few times. Let's talk about Fever Dream, because it is so exceptionally good. And also that there's the exclusive Japanese bonus acoustic version of Fever Dream. Just a great song.
Yeah.
Once again, it's summertime. What's going on? Like, I'm a teenager again. That is just immediately these earworms. I gotta say, earworms.
Okay, a few of the other guys in the band was like, "Are you sure you want to tell people where you got inspired or stole from?" I'm like, "Absolutely," because the AOR fans will listen to the songs differently if they knew what gave the song to me. I love, obviously, this record is more a tribute to the productions of Mutt Lange than they are a tribute to one other band. And Mutt produced, as you know, the glorious Waking Up the Neighbors album by Bryan Adams. And on that record is what I think Mutt Lange does best, a slow mid-tempo kind of dreamy song that has a sexual undertone, but in a sort of elegant way. And that would be Thought I Died and Gone to Heaven from that record. So if you listen to the bass on Fever Dream, I'm getting so nerdy now, but bass goes doom doom da doom doo doo doom da. That's right off of for 6.5 minutes, basically. That's right from that Bryan Adams Mutt Lange track. And also I wanted the dreaminess and the size from Stand Up, Get Love into Motion from Def Leppard on the Adrenalize record. And then you have possibly Mutt's finest moment. People will fight me on this, but I Cry Myself to Sleep at Night by Romeo's Daughter. If you know those 3 songs, you know Fever Dream. I wanted a song that made me feel like those songs make me feel. It's like I might have taken an edible, I might be a little turned on, but I'm also relaxed and enjoying the moment. That's what that song is. And when I made the demo, even the demo before these amazing guys, even the demo had that thing in it. And a lot of my demos don't have the thing until the guys play on it. But that demo, that song had the magic I wanted from the beginning, I think.
Interesting. And now as you get nerdy, okay, I was going to hold this back, but I'll bring it out as far as you taking segments of song and making it your own. I think it was subtle what brought me into City of Angels. Now, I hear a little bit, just again, it's subtle, but it's like, what am I hearing? I hear some Ed Guy in there. I hear Superheroes. I don't know if you know that song.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. I'm like, what is that? I'm like, melody-wise, rhythmically, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what it is. Ed Guy Superheroes. But not that it's, you know, a rip-off.
I am going to go, oh, no, I'm going to go check it out. That song is interesting because, again, we are old enough to where we think of an album rather than just songs. And even though I was hoping to make 9 singles for this record, the coolest thing is City of Angels was the last song I wrote, like a few months before we turned the record in. And the reason I wrote it for a purpose. Our very first song, That's What You Get for Falling in Love, and maybe the song called Against All the Odds, they are what I call straight down the middle AOR. They got 120 BPMs, they're up-tempo and fun, they're in a major key, they don't rock too hard, they never get ballady and lame. So I'm like, we need one more song that feels like the middle, the center of the record. And I also, because this record took so long to make, I listened to our first song, That's What You Get for Falling in Love, and I hear, oh, I didn't put too many parts on it. It doesn't feel too bloated. And then a few of the other songs, I went more in the Meatloaf, Jim Steinman direction, where there's a lot of parts stacked. There's like bigger than life. And I thought to myself, I need one more song on the record to feel like that first song. Like it feels like it's 2 guitars instead of 8, So I wrote City of Angels to be direct, simple, and a bit bonehead on purpose. And that thing really came out great. It has a certain feeling, like if you're listening at home while you're vacuuming, you got a fake rolling down your window. It has that. And so, that song I wrote last to feel like the first couple of songs. Yeah.
And I guess since it was a bit more spontaneous and not so forced, that's how it is. Keep it.
Yeah, the funny thing about that song is I had this guitar riff, da, 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 simple guitar riff. And then I couldn't write a chorus for it. And then maybe it was laziness, but then I started singing along to the riff. And so I made the riff into the chorus because I didn't have a chorus. And then that was like sort of a happy accident. Certainly not skill. It was just like a happy accident. So it came out really fun. I can't wait to play that one live.
Now, playing live, fast forward a couple of months, you're going to be playing at the Frontiers Rock Fest on May the 3rd, which I believe is the final of the 3 days. You're playing with Stryper and Nelson and John Corabi. That's going to be
all those acts you mentioned are on the last day
that you play, correct?
We are playing the last day,
yeah.
But we're going to fly in early to rehearse because this band doesn't exist in real life and we need to rehearse. We don't want to disappoint anyone at this show, especially not ourselves. But flying in early to rehearse means that on May 1st, we get to see Starship and Giant, which if you listen to our record, if you don't hear Starship in almost every song on our record, you're not listening, because Starship's Love Among the Cannibals records, I stole even more from, or was inspired even more from than Hysteria, if that's even possible. You listen to that Love Among the Cannibals record, listen to Not Enough and The Burn, the first few songs. Crazy good stuff. So being there to see those bands as fans and be able to have a few drinks because we're not playing ourselves that day, can't wait.
Well, and Giants as well, the fact that Dan Huff is coming to play, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I have worked with Dan quite a bit, and whenever I work with him, it's hard to not turn into a fanboy. It's been a while though. He's a very kind human as well. But yeah, they played those Giant songs in Nashville a few times during the years he wasn't in the band, and I was lucky enough to be at one of those shows, and him realizing how much he means to a lot of people after all these years, when he has just thought that I'm a famous producer now, and the entire internet is like, bro, how you did the solo on some random Giant. He can't get away from it. And I think he's a little excited, but I think he's just accepted that, because he, probably has enough money in life, he's a big producer. He realizes that part of his legacy in life's work is to honor the people that fell in love with this stuff. And I think it's wonderful that he's doing it.
Yeah. And it's same with his brother, David, because I had the pleasure of having David on the show last year, and I felt just another super quality human. As well as, has made a very solid career for himself in the industry as a producer and session guy. but they just do
Yeah.
this. And that's where I feel that there's a bit of parallel between Giant and Transatlantic Radio as far as, primarily session guys, but just love this music so much and can't help but create.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you mentioning our little band in the same breath as Giant, because when it comes down to it, AOR has a lot to do with big production and has to do with a great singer and hopefully a guy that can really play guitar. But as you mentioned with Fever Dream in the acoustic version, it is all about songwriting. And a lot of those super groups from the same era that Giant was in, they had the budget and the nice looking video and the killer playing, but the songs weren't there because they were musicians more before they were songwriters. What I think Dan Huff did so well with Giant is all of that musicianship never got away of the song. And they have these great songs that would sound great on an acoustic guitar without a guitar solo. So, the fact that you mentioned Transatlantic with Giant, it's, especially, both records are great from back in the day, but that second, Time to Burn record is even better for me. I love that record.
Quality stuff. Now, before we get going, where should we send people to buy physical copies of Transatlantic Radio?
Well, I want to make sure I honor the people at the label who's been so helpful and had such great faith in us. They started stalking me after the first song before I even knew we were a band. So props to the fan people who are now our label people at Frontiers. But with that said, you go to their website, buy the record there. Now, if you want a signed copy, then you have to either just send us a message on one of our socials or go to our website, which is transatlanticradioband.com. So buy your CD from Frontiers. If you want it signed, you buy it from us on our website.
Do you have merch as well, or is it just music for now?
We do. Frontiers have put out a hoodie and a simple black t-shirt. They both feature the album cover. We have baseball style t-shirt to be proper 80s, the white body with the black sleeves, and they feature the AI girl from our Fever Dream cover. That's still the favorite graphic I've seen during the 6 years with this band. It's just, and all the colors of that, it's just very AOR. It leans heavy in the pink and fuchsia and all that stuff. You have to be a big manly man to wear that shit.
Well, Victor, I appreciate your time today. I appreciate getting more information and insight on Transatlantic Radio, and I look forward to hearing more, hopefully some more Transatlantic Radio down the line. But the new record, Midnight Transmission, will be released on Frontiers Music this coming Friday, February the 20th. Make sure you buy physical copies and support the band directly, and don't miss them at Frontiers Rock Fest on the third and final night on May the 3rd with Stryper and Nelson, John Corabi, and more. Victor, it's been a pleasure.
I cannot thank you enough, JJ, for obviously having listened to our record and read the whatever info and taken the time. Very, very flattering. So I love Canada even more now. Thank you for being so nice to us.
I appreciate it. This is Different Stages Radio.